I'll say is, well, what do you currently do with your kids in your normal family life? And that
confusing.
kind of, yeah,
probably
right off the bat, everybody's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're asking me, what do we do with kids in missional community? I'm saying, well, what do you do with your kids in normal family life?
Yeah.
And so, some of your answers might be something like, well, we eat together. We do chores. We play games. We learn stuff. We have fun.
Yeah.
We fight. We make up,
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what you do with kids in a missional. All those same things are how and when true discipleship happens. It's a lifestyle. It's in the rhythms of normal life. And so your community life can and should include all those same things. And kids fit right in to most of that at all the same times.
Welcome to the Everyday Disciple Podcast, where you'll learn how to live with greater intentionality and an integrated faith that naturally fits into every area of life. In other words, discipleship as a lifestyle. This is the stuff your parents, pastors, and seminary professors probably forgot to tell you. And now, here's your host, Caesar Kalinowski.
Hey, Heath. I'm excited to be here today, brother.
Yeah, me too, man.
Kind of part 3 of our deeper dive into lifestyle, discipleship, and mission and all that stuff.
I know, it's a beautiful day outside. I just kind of want to go out and hang out with the neighbors.
Be great if we could smoke some cigars out there, maybe, huh?
Tonight.
Boom. Imagine that.
Hey, so, yeah, like you said, we're in the middle of this little micro 3-week thing on small groups and missional communities and lifestyle of discipleship. Today we're talking about kids.
Yeah.
It's fun. Like, kids are such a joy, and they're so much fun.
Gosh.
And we should value them in our small groups and our missional communities.
Yeah, instead of just tolerate them, right?
But a lot of times people are asking, like, what do you do with them? How do you handle them? Like, what activities do you do for them? Because they drive us nuts, or they get in the way of us trying to have our Bible study.
So what are you getting at? Your kids are driving you nuts again in your missional community?
Yeah. Well, we started a missional community about a year ago, and that was a common thing. It's like, well, maybe we just get a babysitter and put them at a different house so they don't bug us.
See, you're gonna get a kick in the tail here today. You shouldn't have said that even. I'm going to go out.
Don't go after me.
Well, I know a lot of folks have missional communities and they're exploding with kids. I remember there's one community and they were really vibrant, but like they were like 6 or 8 couples, but they had like 23 kids between them. And so they were just, everything they did was like they needed to rent a bus. It was just awesome. But anyway.
That is so fun.
Yeah. So we're going to talk all about that. All right.
Well, let's jump into it. What do you do with kids in a missional community? Because oftentimes they are seen as a nuisance or in the way of what's going on.
No one wants to say it. No one wants to admit
they're
that.
interrupting.
They're
like, we're trying to study and you keep interrupting me. And
so we shove them in the basement and we hire a teenager, right?
Yeah. Get them out of where we're at.
Uh-huh.
What do you say?
I'm going to start here and say the church is a family.
Okay.
Right? It's baseline. Always has been. And it's vital that we learn how to include everyone in the family in the mission that God's called us to. So even, or maybe even especially our kids. So my answer to like, what do you do with kids? I usually start off with a few questions because I get asked that question a lot.
Okay.
I mean, a whole lot.
So we weren't alone.
Yeah. We train people all over, right? Yeah. And they're like, this thing's starting to go, but what do you do with your kids, right?
Yeah.
And so I start off with 3 questions. First question I'll say is, well, what do you currently do with your kids in your normal family life? And that kind of
confusing. Yeah. Probably.
Right off the bat, everybody's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're asking me, what do we do with kids in missional community? I'm saying, well, what do you do with your kids in normal family life?
Yeah.
And so, some of your answers might be something like, well, we eat together. We do chores. We play games. We learn stuff. We have fun.
Yeah.
We fight. We make up,
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what you do with kids in a missional community. All those same things are how and when true discipleship happens. It's a lifestyle. It's in the rhythms of normal life. And so your community life can and should include all those same things. And kids fit right in to most of that at all the same times.
Yeah. Don't kick them out of what you're doing now.
Right? Here's my second question. I'll ask people when they say, what do you do with kids? It's like, do you consider your kids part of the community or do you want them to feel that they are? And their answer is always, of course.
Sure.
So if Christians continue to silo their kids off, like into kids class, or youth groups until they become young adults, they're never going to feel like they're part of the church and part of its mission.
Yeah.
Right? Think about that. And I think this is a big contributing factor to the huge fall off from church participation when kids go to college. Think about it. They've always been siloed off into kids class and then this and then middle school, then high school. And then they go off to college and they come back and like, I don't know any of these people. That's not my pastor. My pastor was the youth guy. Of course, those change every 14 months on the national average. And so, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I don't know anybody here. And so we never made them part of the church. We silo them off. So living an integrated life is key. Our children, they're not a nuisance, and they need to be included in the normal, everyday rhythms of a life lived on mission if we ever want them to continue on with a strong and integrated faith. Think about it.
That's actually causing me to think about, like, in the church I currently serve in, like restructuring some stuff, because we have the cry room, which is they watch on a TV and there's a glass wall so that they don't make noise while we're trying to learn what the pastor's saying. And so I go, now,
Right.
even hearing you talk like
And
that,
then
I'm
they're
like,
going to go
maybe
to
I need
like the seeds thing, and then go to the next thing, and they're always going to be siloed off apart from it. But then somehow magically at a birthday or at a graduation, they're going to go, and now you're part of that group of people that you've never met.
Yeah. Wow.
That's your elder. That's your pastor. No, it's not. I never met him.
Yeah.
Never had a meal with that person. How am I? But no, you have to submit to that person.
Yeah.
It's like
wow.
right. And so we do that, and then we wonder like, oh, somehow magically I just want my kids to have this really integrated faith that we've never achieved.
Yeah.
How? Well, how's that gonna? Right?
Yep.
So that's why I asked that question. Do you
good.
want your kids to feel like part of the group? Then make them part of the right.
And it might be noisy and it might be messy. Yeah.
Third question, and this is like the one this is why I'm gonna spank you. I ask people like, what do you do with your kids in a missional community? And I'll say, are you trying to do, quote, missional community in a single night each week?
Yeah.
See, this is often the hidden problem lurking behind the question.
Sure.
It really is.
Makes sense.
As soon as they say that, it's almost like code for like, our missional community is a weekly meeting and our kids are driving us nuts.
Okay, so the one time you gather and the kids are driving you nuts,
Yeah.
you're not gathering more than once?
Right.
Yeah.
So just like we can never properly parent our kids in a single night each week, right? Think
Yeah.
about that. Like, when do you parent your kids? Tuesday night. What about the other 6 nights? They're crazy. They're off the wall,
Yeah.
right? Well, missional community life can't be jammed into a few hours on a weeknight. And we're going to need to have weekly rhythms. We talked about that in last episode, 123.
Yeah.
Talked about up in out rhythms,
Yep.
like how to pick some real basic ones, but make them predictable, right? And so we're going to have weekly rhythms that include folks at all different points in their spiritual journey and in the relational continuum. And kids are no different than that. So what are some of the activities that we're doing throughout the week as a community together that are maybe more slanted towards the kids in this thing? But over
Sure.
here, that one's not as slanted towards the kids. So guess what? That is adult time.
Yep.
See, but when you're trying to jam it all into one night, you can't do that. But if you're not, you're going like, well, family dinner night for the community. It's a dinner.
Yeah.
Kids are here. It's messy. It's loud. You sit where you can. You eat what you can.
Things
we all
break.
help clean up.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going through like the story of God with some neighbors who are not yet believers, and as adults, that's not time to have the kids maybe,
Sure.
right? But you know what? On Saturday, we do like clean the park day, and the kids love it. And we always do hot dogs afterwards, and they get to invite all their friends to come along.
Yeah.
See what I mean? Stuff like that. So I know many, let me start that over. I know that many of us have been raised with this idea that our children's spiritual development is handled by proxy,
Sure.
sort of through Sunday school and youth groups. But Old and New Testament writings indicate that parents, right, are to pass down the story and the experience of a vibrant, true Christian faith to their kids, not through children's ministry at your local church.
Yep.
I mean, they can help,
Yeah.
but that's not their job. Sure, that's a bonus, right? But intentionally discipling your own kids in the normal rhythms of life is where the gospel comes alive.
Yeah. So these questions, man, they are not only clarifying, but they cut really right to the heart of the issue, don't they?
Sorry about that. Everybody's listening like, oh, great. I thought you were going to help me
Stop
today.
picking scabs.
But see, like if we don't clear that out of the way, though, we're
Sure.
trying to bolt on new rhythms and jam them all into one night, or bifurcate the kids, or you got to ask those questions first. You got to ask those questions. Okay, so what we discovered that allowed us to live a kingdom sort of heaven come to earth lifestyle is very different than the way we were raised in the church.
Yeah,
Seriously.
For sure.
Okay. And very differently than how we first started parenting our own children. Sorry, kids.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
It just wasn't. I mean, like I told that story last week about we were kind of living the week to week, Sunday only. And we loved our church. It was great, but it wasn't getting it. And the kids weren't falling super stoked in love with God and like figuring out how to fit it all into life. They were starting to plan their dream life like everybody else. And where do I go to college? And how do I get that killer job? And who am I going to date? And where's,
Yeah, at best it's mediocre like entertainment to get through while your parents go study somewhere. I remember being in a small group my parents were in a small group when I was a kid. And I was like, yeah, kids we didn't really do anything other than we're corralled away. And I didn't know why we were wasting one night of every week going to this thing for my parents to benefit that we never really learned much from. And so,
What you're supposed to do.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, like I said, that's kind of how we were stuck in that cycle too. So
Well, I know you're going to, here in just a couple minutes, land some tips on us and suggestions on how we can grow in this area. But how did you and Tina and others in community get to this richer experience of faith and all of life and together in community, including kids and dogs and difficult people? What's your story there?
yeah, like I mentioned just a second ago in the last couple episodes. And by the way, if you hadn't heard those, you want to go back and listen to both of those because
Absolutely.
this is sort of part 3, like we said in the series, and it's all related to lifestyle discipleship mission. Well, what we discovered and what we developed was, and this is ultimately how we got there and helped to get our kids there, and like now we train this all over, right?
Sure.
Is a unique combination of teaching, heart transformation, and life on life experience that created a lifestyle apprenticeship. And that's kids included. Okay.
Sure.
So like this sounds great. And like I talked about this last week a little bit, but it's true. That lifestyle apprenticeship integrated into all of life, man, your kids, it's all of life, man, right? They're in it. And so now to have a community to help you and reinforce all that. I mean, it's not just sermons or classroom teaching, but it's learning together with more mature disciples that have kind of mastered a lifestyle of discipleship and mission. I remember when our kids, when we were first starting to live this way, moved to here Tacoma, and the whole Soma thing was starting to take off, right?
Sure.
The coolest thing for my teenage daughters is instead of now just having to go to the Pizza Do youth ministry, I call it Pizza Do because like they just have pizza and Mountain Dew every week, instead of going to the Pizza Do,
Sure.
they guess what they got to do now? We didn't have a youth group program. We were in community. We were just getting started.
Yeah.
They got to hang out with all these like young 20-somethings, gals that were really cool, they thought.
Wow.
And, they had awesome hair, and they'd take them out to do nails and take them shopping like up in Seattle. And they're like, let's see, hang out with a bunch of kids, 13 and 14, 15 like us, or go hang out with these really cool 20-somethings. And they got it. They were living the life. They loved it.
Yeah. How could
and they
you not?
reinforced what we said. I remember when Kristen was like 17, she's like, as soon as I turn 18, I'm moving out of the house. We're having a bad night,
Sure.
And literally her friends, in the community who are part of our missional community, part of her missional community,
Sure.
overheard it. And they're like, are you really? Like, because you turn 18 in a few months. Like, do you think your parents would like let me rent your room? Because they're freaking awesome. And I'd love to,
Wow, that's
so
fun.
it just fixed it, right?
Yeah.
So we developed a new language, and it was just it was life on life, and it was weekly and daily.
Yeah.
And, and like I said this last week too, it's like we discovered that this lifestyle is not only great for us and for, raising kids that'll actually have a faith and live this way, but it was super attractive to others too. People not yet believers. It's amazing.
We talked a few minutes ago about you laying out these tips for what to do with our kids in the rhythms of like a missional community life.
Yeah.
And
I got 7. It's a good biblical number. I got 7 tips for you. Is that cool?
Yeah, go
Is
for
that
it.
too many? We got time?
We got time.
All right. I'm gonna kind of jam through them just because there's 7 of them, and I don't want to run too late. So
Sure.
Here's some super practical ways to include your kids in the life of your missional community without going nuts. Okay, losing your minds. All right. First, and some of this like is just me putting feet, sort of hands and feet to some of the stuff we already just talked about. Here's the first suggestion: have family times, quote unquote, that are just purely for getting together as community. And these times don't have to have a big agenda. They can be as wild and as fun as you want. Have food, have fun. Maybe have a small object lesson for the kids, lots of questions and stuff to get them engaged.
Sure.
But make it a family time.
Yep.
And that's a separate family time. That's when they get to be super engaged and make them the center.
Sure.
Okay. Here's a second suggestion: have other or more times throughout the week that the adults in community get together for learning or deeper discussion or things that are just adult. Right? If we're going to be mature disciples and it's part of our lifestyle, not everything is going to make sense to a kid or for them to be there. Or you want to focus, that's okay.
Yeah.
You go to work, you don't take your kids.
Yeah, that's great.
Not most people, right? So our kids can easily be a distraction for these times, especially like if you got not yet believers with you and the kids are going nuts.
Yep.
It's just a different time. Kids are kids,
Yep.
right? And so sometimes we need to do adult-only stuff, okay? Third, have different missional communities take turns babysitting each other's kids for those adult times.
Yeah.
So people would say like, yeah, well, the reason we jam it all into one night is because nobody can afford babysitting. I'm like, hey, is there like do you have 2 missional communities going on at your church? Or do you know anybody else living this kind of lifestyle? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
just swap out babysitting then. Like whenever that one time a week that it's going to be adult only time
Yeah.
or twice or whatever it is, like swap it out. So, as soon as you get to more than one missional community in your network or church or area, then you can just trade off hanging out with each other's kids so that you can have those focused times. You know what else? This also helps your kids know that they're part of like a larger family on mission.
Yep.
Like other people live this way too. And
That's
they're
cool.
reinforcing the same stuff in language. Fourth one, have older kids, like maybe teens or something, watch or teach the younger ones while the big people have their discussion times. Now, I know a lot of people try to do that. So
Sure.
this is not like, whoa, man, you're blowing my mind here. But part of discipleship is learning to teach and train others that which we've learned and experienced. So having older kids, right, help teach and be with the younger extended, brothers and sisters is a great way to train them for leadership and disciple making. So I'm not saying have the older kids hang out and just watch them and roll a video. I'm saying maybe you're not even doing anything. I'm saying maybe just you want to make times where the teens do the story with the younger kids, or they're teaching them something, or they're taking them out to pick up trash or something, talking about why we want to be a servant, or I don't know,
Yeah.
right? Because that is part of their discipleship. Set them up to win, right, and give them a little bit review afterwards how things went. And I don't suggest paying them like babysitters for this. This is family, and let them be family.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to do it because they'll get being family, they don't have to, but they get to. And that's a learning point too.
Yeah.
Hey, these are your little brothers and sisters.
Yeah. Little apprentices.
Yeah, exactly.
great.
Fifth one. Here's another one. Learn to integrate the kids during parties or serving times when you're out helping people together. Like this gives them memories of much more of a holistic Christian life. And it shows them that we're all in this together and there's a place for them at the table and on the mission. So what I mean by integrate them in is like, give them jobs to do. You're throwing a party, they're setting the table, they're greeting, they're going, hey, can I get you guys soda? What can I get
Teach them
you?
hospitality.
Teach them hospitality. Have them clearing plates, right?
Yeah.
Like have them show people where this is that. Have them take them out and show them their fort or their backyard thing or their tent, whatever, whatever they're doing, right? When they're out serving, they're not just out doing them, like give them actual jobs, give them feedback. Tell them how it connects to the gospel and how God's treated us a certain way. And that's why we treat people this way, right? Give them stuff to do. Like just don't
That's awesome,
park 'em,
man.
yeah?
What a great idea.
Okay. Here's the sixth one. Check this one out. Let the little kids run the family meeting, like when family times or serving times, like once a month or so.
That's a foreign concept.
Like for example, I heard one set of third graders that I heard about, they created invites for other kids at their school to come by and watch Shrek on the side of their house using their parents' projector.
Yeah.
And they also made invites for the parents to come over for coffee and refreshments. And like 60 kids showed up.
Wow.
And most of them had parents in tow, right? Yeah. So encourage your little ones in praying for their friends and finding ways to be on mission with you and even let them lead. Yeah. Like, what do you think would be a cool thing to bless your friends?
Yeah.
What would be fun in the neighborhood? Like, what do you see that's broken and weird? We'll bring all the adults are going to help you. See what I'm saying? It's like, let them. Yeah. Let them run things a little bit.
I love that.
They're not going to do it perfectly, but that's not the point, right?
Yeah.
And here's the seventh thing. Okay. Relax. Stressing out over trying to always create this perfect environment or the perfect evening or like a program or something is a lot more the result of our church backgrounds, like the way we've kind of raised with programming, than what we read about in the early church and what their lives looked like in the book of Acts. Start believing that kids are super valuable part of our community and that they're the future of the mission.
Yeah.
And don't worry about programming everything perfectly.
Yeah.
Okay. So just give yourself a break there. Yeah. So there's seven tips, man.
Man, so we usually do the big 3. We've already got a big 7. So here's another big 3.
Well, those are the 7 tips. Yeah. but I do
There's
actually have
much.
a big 3 takeaways for us this week, sort of kind of cull it down,
Yeah, absolutely. So the big 3, as you know, are things that we want you to know and believe and can get started on right away in light of what we've been discussing over the last 20 minutes or so.
And every week you can also get a printable PDF of the week's Big 3 as a free download. We always do that by going to everydaydisciple.com/big3, BIG3.
And I'm going to give them to you free now, but for a lot of people, they're like, oh, I wish I could have written that down. How he said that,
Yeah.
Or I'm driving or something right now. So I'll give them to you now, but just go to the site, and you can download them, and it's all beautiful and nice, and you'll love it.
Before I give you those, though, I wanted to tell you all that in just a few weeks, we're opening up only 12 spots to begin working with a limited group of dedicated disciple makers who are going to join us in our Everyday Disciple Makers coaching experience. With our Everyday Disciple framework, you'll find clarity on what discipleship really is, what it looks like, and how to disciple others to maturity. It's all the stuff we've been talking about today. We'll teach you exactly what to do and how to do it with the confidence to keep moving forward at a sustainable pace, something that fits your life. We'll help you find a work, ministry, family life balance while making discipleship part of your normal life. If you feel like your current disciple-making process or lack thereof is not producing transformation, freedom, and maturity in your people, our proven discipleship framework will help you change that. We've helped thousands of people in every imaginable context and age and stage of life do that. And like we said, they're finding greater spiritual freedom as they are released from a discipleship model that's sort of week to week and based on behavioral modification and sin management. They're seeing their relationships healed that have been broken sometimes for years and years. And all of this flows from gaining a deeper understanding of the gospel in all of life and then growing in our gospel fluency, the ability to see and speak and experience the good news in every part of our lives and relationships with others. If you want to get more information on exactly how this coaching works, maybe you're just kind of wondering, scratching your head, I've been thinking about this, you talk about it pretty often, you want to find out more and see if it's a good fit for you, just do that. Let's just talk. Go to everydaydisciple.com/coaching to set up a discovery call. You and I will hop on, get to know each other, find out a little bit about your current discipleship process, and see if we can help you accomplish your disciple-making goals, either as a family or for your entire church. So just go to everydaydisciple.com/coaching, and let's get this ball rolling.
Okay.
All right, Caesar, what are the big three for this week?
Okay, so here's what I want you to know. Kids are a part of your family, and they're an important part of your missional community. They're not just an annoyance or people to be entertained. And, think about it this way. Healthy families have people of all ages involved in important ways, and together they better display what the kingdom of God is like.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, this is what I want you to believe, that a true life-giving missional community is a daily, vibrant experience in the normal rhythms of your life. It's not a weekly meeting, okay? So everything can't just be jammed into it.
Sure.
It's a life lived with discipleship and mission radically prioritized as a lifestyle, along with your entire family and your friends and their kids.
Yeah. Everyone's invited.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to blow everybody's paradigm up a little bit. Don't think like, what do I do with them in a meeting? But think about this lifestyle, this missional community is a life-giving, whole thing that we're all living in.
Sure.
Okay? Third, I just want to say this, and this is going to seem a little bit hard, okay? But I'm an older brother, and by God's grace, we've raised 3 kids that live this way and love people well, but not everybody does, right?
Sure.
And it's a lot of them just, So without getting into some training or investing the time and effort to get equipped to really live and experience a vibrant gospel-centered community, like a family together, there is a high chance that your kids may abandon their Christian faith or be enticed by some weird, watered-down, sort of almost Christian version of things.
Yeah.
And I saw this thing recently, Heath, from the Pew Research Center.
Okay.
They said more than a third of adults that are in the millennial generation,
Yeah, that's me.
okay, 35% now say they have no religion.
Wow.
And that's up 10% just since 2007.
It's in the last decade.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. 35% say I have no religion. Okay.
Wow.
And so you're thinking, oh my gosh, now what's it at now? And then what's it at for that next, like people listening who got littler kids?
Yeah.
I guarantee
gonna
you
keep
it's
going
south
up.
of there. It's way worse. So without getting some training,
Yeah.
like to change this, I mean,
Yeah.
good luck,
Start
guys.
involving your kids at a young age.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
please, please, please do.
Yeah.
And that's why we're doing this, podcast, and we're trying to help everything be integrated, right? Integrate your life and your faith.
Yep.
And so today we're, integrate your kids.
Bring the kids
please.
along
Yeah,
and
man.
involve them and train them.
All right.
And be sure to join us next week. We're going to continue to talk about these things and keep talking about how the gospel speaks good news into everyday life. All right? I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us today. For more information on this show and to get loads of free discipleship resources, visit everydaydisciple.com. And remember, you really can live with the spiritual freedom and relational peace that Jesus promised every day.